They say that grief hurts in different ways for everybody. Some can move on immediately, others will still be there for years. But most never truly move on. They only learn how to live with it, how to keep going when it no longer feels safe. There's no exact path for that, and no matter how much they prepare you, you will never be ready.
In June of this year, I started a large project I never imagined I could do. A mural of my animals, the things I care about most, playing together around a cherry blossom tree. I had been planning it for months, begged to pick up the supplies, and then the day finally came. As a disabled artist, I knew this was going to take a lot of work, a lot of fainting, and a lot of pain, but I wanted to do it anyway. And I was proud. I had one of these ambitious ideas of mine, and I was committed to it, spending hours on it every day, watching Dexter while I worked, content as can be. This was my project, my beginning, a tribute to everyone I love and the ones that made me get up every morning and try again. This is what fed my soul when I didn't know where to go next, didn't know how to even figure it out. College wouldn't be possible anymore, so what would I do next? I wanted to be an artist, and so this was my muse, my way of saying, I'm here, I did this. I can imagine that isn't a rare mindset to have, to want to be something, to want to be remembered. And the desire to be more is always a nice thought, but it wasn't enough on its own. So we tend to cling to the things we love, allow them to guide us through the beginning of the journey we all inevitably go through in our lives. The quest to not only figure out what our future looks like, but how it feels. To find yourself, you cling to a purpose. And so we find that the best way to get there is through people you already care about. And I am no different than you, dear viewer. I also find myself tied to a tether, a living reason. And Vincent was my tether.
This little guy is gonna make it a little bit difficult to paint. He's just gonna be like, please touch me. And I'm gonna be like, I've painted my hands, I can't touch you. Hey there. How's it going? He's just a needy little guy. Hi. Hi, baby. Hi, baby. Alright, you want to go get a piece of fruit? Then will you calm down? Will you calm down if we get some fruit? Let's go get some fruit. Come on. Oh! I just want to give you a peanut. Nom nom nom. Look at your cheek. It's gonna go right back in here. Bye. We got the camera. This is what I record with. We have this. This is what I watch Dexter on my tablet. We got all these shit. We got the wall. We got these paintings to keep me company because the hamsters are rarely ever out, but I mean, see the mushroom? But one of them's out right now. This is pretty cool. And I have my AirPods. Pretty cool. We got this light over here. We got a hamster burrow. So cool. Turn this on. It smells like cat pee over here.
Something so insignificant that marked the beginning of the spiral. It was going to be a few days before we could replace the plastics, so I didn't paint. And every day I felt worse. My usual leg pain became so bad that I couldn't walk down the stairs for movie night anymore. I started getting intense migraines, laying in my dark room for hours with ice over my head, the grip getting tighter and tighter on my skull. I couldn't eat anything without throwing it up. I couldn't move. And one day, I was home in my bed, sobbing as the pain worsened. And then the next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. I had already learned how it felt to lose someone dear to me years before. And I am sharing this story because I have hope that someone like me out there can see this and be heard as the one who still lives on when they didn't. She was very close to me when we were kids. We would banter and complain and play different games, usually Roblox. She introduced me to a lot of the things I love. I had known she had cancer for years by this point, several of them. I still remember when she told me she had to get her head shaved, and I thought she still looked so beautiful, but I never told her that. The last time I talked to her, she told me to go away. I asked why, and she said she was in the hospital. A week later, I asked how she was, if she was going to get better, and she said no. It's been almost 4 years now since I got that message. Her father, he told me she lost the fight. And I knew for a long time it was going to happen. But I couldn't stop it. I could only watch as she fell apart. And I already thought that broke me. Then, 3 years later, I had to learn how it felt to lose myself too. To be sent to the hospital and not know when I would leave. To get so many tests taken all at once and to wait until they told me whether or not I would ever get past this or if I was even going to get home. The things that used to matter to me didn't anymore. And the things that I had abandoned did. I met Vincent when he was just a teeny tiny little thing. He could probably fit 3 of himself in 1 coffee cup. He was going back and forth from his hoard of goods to the new one he was building, just over and over stuffing little bits in his cheeks and running over to deposit them. I thought he looked so silly and fat with his little legs, and oh my gosh, he was so beautiful. Then I tapped my finger on the glass and he came up, chittering with his hand on the other side. I chittered back and we did this for a while. And then he ended up climbing the ventilation on the side of the cage, then falling down because his grip wasn't strong enough, and as he did, I just couldn't take my eyes off of him and just fell in love. A young couple came up and saw him, talking about how beautiful the hamster he is. And my mom immediately said, "So you want this one?" to me, and I begged for him. I literally couldn't imagine a world without him in it, even though he'd only been in mine for around 20 minutes. And so the couple decided not to interfere. My very first photo of him is blurry and messy. He's in there and you can see him, but it isn't easy. My memories of my little Vincent, they get blurry as well. And our relationship and the aftermath contain a similar mess. It's hard to remember every detail, but I want to, and I can't. And part of me, a large part of me, blames myself for that. He would beg to be picked up several times a day, his little hands on the glass every time you came near. He would sit in my pockets, digging for little pieces of fur to add to his nest. There was a specific hoodie I wore that he was completely obsessed with. Sometimes he would end up with my hair, too. I taught him to come up to my finger and tap it with his nose, and I would say boop and give him a treat. Then I would kiss his little head and let him go back to his burrow. He had so much sass. If I dared to leave the house or change out one of his items, it meant war. He would throw the biggest tantrum, completely destroying the cage. Vincent was not a boy. It took me a long time to figure that out, but I called him my son, even if he was only a hamster. He was a piece of my soul. He still is. That doesn't go away with time. He will still always be my soul. And then my health crashed. Then I was in the hospital. I was sent there for 3 days, on constant watch, tests, IVs, and still they never found out why I hurt so bad. They can only theorize. I still have no real diagnosis. Then I came home, spent weeks in my bed, in constant pain and darkness in my head, and then I was told he was gone. One day, the food disappeared and he came up to the glass to be held, and then the next day it didn't, and he didn't come. And then still it didn't. I wasn't the one to discover him, stiff and empty and all alone in his last moments. I didn't get to say goodbye. So I said goodbye in the only way I knew how, and that was through art. And so I painted until my hands hurt too bad to go on, and so I painted until I couldn't anymore. After 3 days in the hospital, I was discharged. It was almost surreal, that feeling. It was like taking my first breath again, except this time the breath failed me. I was taken to the emergency room with the worst migraine in my life, only a week later. And so, when I lost those I love, I found myself losing myself as well. That was the worst part about it. Usually, when you have no one else to turn to, you still had yourself. Until yourself gave up too, and you become quiet, just drifting through the world as it clamped down harder and harder, and no matter how hard you tried, there was no relief, not even for a moment. And then, eventually, slowly, quietly, you piece yourself back together. There is no grand revelation, no big turning event, just a little push that makes you try again. And for me, that was my kitten. For some, it is their family. And for some, it is themselves. But the greatest battle of all is learning how to love again.